by that point.
Yeah, they had. They'd recorded a single, or maybe 2 singles, I don't know, for EMI. And then they started to record, they recorded SF Sorrow, a couple of tracks from SF Sorrow. The tracks that were already recorded were SF Sorrow Is Born, and Bracelets of Fingers, and I See You. So, but I recorded the rest of the album with them.
And I mean, to be honest, that's one of my favourite albums of all time. It's in the top 5 there, and I think, I mean, my opinion's very important, obviously, but it sets the bar. Like, the bar is up there. Then SF Sorrow is there. It's, in my opinion, it's better than Sergeant Pepper, all those other big sort of, got fans of me in the crowd there. Did when you were recording that album, did it feel like we're making history here, or is this, it's just another sort of day in the office?
Well, it was kind of more or less just another day in the office, although the first track that they played to me in the studio, when I sort of joined the band and I was going in for the first recording session, they played Bracelets of Fingers to me. And I thought that was just such an amazing track. I said, you've got to put this out as a single. It's just so good. But they didn't listen. They put out, Private Sorrow as the next single, which was, it just didn't have the same impact.
No, and I think believe it, the marketing at the time didn't really sort of push SF Sorrow.
No, the album, when the album came out, it was very poorly handled.
Around that time, because you were with the Pretties for what, about 18 months, was it?
About 18 months, yeah.
You also recorded soundtrack for a Normal Wisdom film, didn't you?
Yeah.
What was it called? What's Good for the Goose?
What's Good for the Goose?
Yeah.
With Normal Wisdom, Sally Juice, and some other.
Yeah. So what did that differ from? I suppose writing an album. Did you go in there with I suppose the production company say, right, this is what we want? What was it?
No, apart from one track, we recorded one track which they wanted originally to use for the the sort of the credits, the title, over the title, which was called What's Good for the Goose. But they didn't use that. They used another song that I think Normal Wisdom wrote. But they did. They used it on the radio clip. When the girls are driving along with Norman, and you just hear a little bit. Well, it's good for the goose, and that's it. But that was the only track that we were kind of guided to.
So the rest of it was just sort of free reign for
and the party scene as well. That was there was a little bit of guidance there. They wanted a bit of a rave up, which. But they didn't use that. They used a guy playing an acoustic guitar. but both those tracks are on the Electric Banana CDs.
And did you get to see the film before you wrote that music, or was it just just go away and write some music? Yeah. Okay.
I think we recorded the music before we actually did the filming.
Yeah. So towards the end of your time in the Pretty Things, you started working on your own solo album, didn't you?
Yeah.
So what was was the idea at that point to sit down and say, right, I'm going to write my own solo album, or had you been throwing some ideas around?
I'd already written a few tracks and done some demos and stuff, but it was nothing. It wasn't anything in the back of my mind that I'd be doing a solo album. It was just by chance, chance I guess, that I was offered a recording deal. It was just, just by.
So you were in quite a few bands, weren't you? And I suppose, looking back as an outsider, it seems to me that things were quite fluid, I suppose, between bands. So, like you say, you walked into your booking agent's office and someone said, "Oh, we need a drummer, will you come and play for us?" Was that, I suppose, it seemed very chaotic, but was that a reflection, would you agree, and was that a reflection of the things, how things were at that time?
My intention wasn't to actually stay with the Pretty Things. When I originally joined them, when I went to Rome, I said that to myself, I'm not sure if I said it to the band, but I said it to myself, look, I can only help out for a month, because I was working with John Junior Wood, on the Aquarian Age
Yeah.
project, and we were writing writing songs, doing demos. We had a single release, which was 10,000 words in a cardboard box, and we'd done demos for other songs at EMI Studios, and we were also writing a stage play, which we started to rehearse with other actors. And the stage play was called Good Wizard Meets Naughty Wizard. But it incorporated all the elements of the teenage opera, you know, like we used some of Mark Wertz's music in the play. We used some of Gustav Holst's Planet's music in the play, and some of our own music as well. That's what I was working on. That's what we were concentrating on. But work with the Pretty Things kind of overtook everything else because they were very busy with SF Sorrow, with What's Good for the Goose, the filming, and gigging as well. And it kind of swallowed up the Aquarian Age things. And I think Junior, you know, got a little bit disheartened because all my time was being taken up with the Pretty Things.
Yeah.
And he went off and joined the Jeff Beck group for a while. And then I carried on with the Pretty Things, and he became a croupier.
Yeah.
And he made a lot of money actually doing that. So, you know, it just happened.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. And the Pretty Things were quite big even before SF Sorrow, weren't they? And
they weren't very big at that time. They were huge when I was a fan of the Pretty Things, which was in kind of 64, 65. They were like, you know, mega. I used to go to gigs with them because I shared a flat with John Stacks, the bass player. That's the original lineup. And that was just like crazy. Yeah. You know, gigs were packed out and just people just going crazy.
So do you feel there was a pressure on you to put that at the forefront of your mind with the Pretty Things because of their history, because they've been going for a good 10 years prior to the
no, I haven't gone 10 years, 63 to 68.
Right, okay, so 5 years.
Yeah,
so 5 years. Because of their fame and do you feel that there was a lot of pressure on you to put that at the forefront of everything else, or is it?
Not really.
No,
not really. I just
it just sort of naturally overtook everything else.
It just overtook.
Yeah,
and it was fun.
Yeah,
it was fun being on the road with a band. You know, a band that I was a fan of.
Yeah.
And I joined the band, and they were my friends. You know.
Okay.
So it was fun, but it did eat up a lot of time, and like everything else got pushed to the side.
Yeah. So, following that, there was the Pink Fairies, wasn't there? Now, the very first lineup, you told me earlier it wasn't the real lineup.
That's right.
Played quite what has been described as a shambolic gig in Manchester. What happened there with that gig?
Well, I'm not sure. I can't remember everything. I can remember little bits of it. But yeah, it was Mick Farron had a gig offer for the Pink Fairies, and at the time I was hanging out with Mick and Steve Took, and Mick said, let's do this gig, you know, and we were kind of okay. So we said, okay, yeah, we'll do this gig, you know, we'll do it, you know, and it was really crazy because we had no rehearsals, we didn't know what songs we were going to do, and we went there in a car with a couple of girls, and I think Mick got very drunk, Steve got very drunk, I got very drunk, and it was just, I don't really remember too much about it.
Too drunk. Yeah.
But we did try.
Yeah.
And
things with that lineup, it fell apart very soon after that?
I mean, I knew at that point that wasn't going to work. That particular lineup would never work.
No.
That was, yeah, so in fact what I did was I contacted, because I was very friendly with Jamie Mandelkow, who was the Deviants manager, and the Deviants were still in America. Mick had come back, they'd sacked Mick, sacked Mick from his own band, and he'd come back to the UK, and then we did this gig, and so I'd always wanted to work with Paul Rudolph. Great guitarist. So I contacted them, I phoned them up with Jamie, and suggested that they come back to the UK and form a band with me. It's me as the lead vocalist, not because we actually ended up as two drummers, but the original idea was for me to be the lead vocalist. That was the idea that I had, and so that's how and they said yes.
Yeah.
We'd do that. So that's what we started to work towards, because I'd left the Pretty Things by then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, to me it seems, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems quite chaotic around that time. It's sort of, the band's falling apart, things aren't sort of...
Actually, it was
gelling.
very, very chaotic.
Yeah.
It needed a little bit of, taken by the scruff of the neck.
Yeah. What do you think, what was the reason for that chaos at that time? Was it sort of 1960s Summer of Love wearing off?
1969. I don't know, it was just kind of drugs and alcohol getting out of control,
Okay. So thinking about that, the drugs and alcohol getting out of control, the band's falling apart, what sort of effect did that have on the kind of music you were playing at that point, and you feel?
Well, the kind of music that that original lineup, it was shambolic and chaotic. It was absolute, rubbish. The music, the Pink Fairies music that developed after that was actually quite interesting. I think, from my writing and production point of view.
Yeah.
But around just before we did the shambolic gig, I'd recorded an album which was Think Pink, but I was still with the Pretty Things at that time, because the Pretty Things are playing on some of the Deviants. Steve took from Tyrannosaurus Rex, he's on it, and John Junior Woods from Tomorrow, and so it was a family affair, And then when Mick came back from, well, first of all, when Steve Took came back from his tour of the States with Tyrannosaurus Rex, Steve wanted to do an album. He wanted to do his own album, so I recorded some demos with him. But then when Mick, and they're very good actually, very good demos. Then when Mick came back from the States, he asked me to play drums on his album, which was Mona, the Carnivorous Circus. So I played drums on that album. So the music, although the live stuff was very shambolic and chaotic, at that point, the recording side of things had gone pretty well.
Yeah.
But as I say, the live thing needed to grab it by the stuff, which is what I did by calling up the Deviants and asking them to come back and form the Pink Fairies with me, the real Pink Fairies.
So, I mean, you played briefly, I suppose, played in the loose sense, with Syd Barrett, was it around that time?
No, it was 72.
72.
Yeah, early 72.
Stars, which was
Stars,
yeah. So he's become the subject of so many legends, I suppose, and he's a bit of an enigma. How did you find him on a personal basis?
Well, I'd known since '67. We were acquaintances. We weren't good friends, but we did many gigs together, and past each other in the dressing room and going on and off stage and stuff like that. And it wasn't until '72 that we became friends. He came along to a gig that we did in King's College Chapel. I was playing with a band called the Last Minute Put Together Boogie Band at the time, because I was based in Cambridge at that time. And we were all based in Cambridge. Jack Monk was the bass player. A guy called Bruce Payne was the lead vocalist. And we were booked to back an American guitarist called Eddie Guitar Burns. And we were setting up on stage, and the side door opened, and Sid walked in with his guitar case, with Jenny Spires, who was married to Jack Monk at the time, but she had been a girlfriend of Sid's earlier on. So they came in together, and Sid walked to the back of the stage. He undid his case and got his guitar out, and he just jammed with us. I'm not sure if he jammed with us at that point when he got there, or if it was later after we'd backed Eddie Guitar Burns. I'm not sure. I can't the actual timing of his jamming with us, but anyway, he jammed with us, and so and off he went. He went home. Then I think it was either the next night or the following night, we were, the Last Minute put together Boogie Band, were booked to support Hawkwind and the Pink Fairies at the Corn Exchange. Oh no, hold on, no, it wasn't Hawkwind and the Pink Fairies. It was, yes, it was Hawkwind and the Pink Fairies. The Last Minute put together Boogie Band. Sid turned up again, just out of the blue, and then he was invited up, and he played with the band and jammed with us. And then it was a little bit later, a few days later, that Jack and Jenny came around to my house in Cambridge and said, look, I think we should go and see Sid and see if he wants to form a band with you and Jack. Because he's enjoying playing with you guys. So anyway, we were around to Sid's house, and he said, yeah, I'd like to form a band with you. So we started rehearsing. That was it.
And what, I suppose, because in a sense there is very little in the way of Sid's output. I mean, he did a couple of solo albums, didn't he, following leaving being kicked out of Pink Floyd.
Three albums, I think he did, yeah.
So
The Madcap Laughs, by the way, which is his first solo album, is one of my top 5.
Yes,
the best album.
Oh yeah, phenomenal. Yeah. A lot of the information we've got to go is just this sort of like, he's there and he's a bit of a legend and he's a bit of a character and he's on the peripheries of things that are going on. What was that the view of him at the time? Was he this sort of enigmatic figure in the background, or was it? Did people know that he was obviously very unwell, wasn't he? So did people know at the time?
I didn't find him unwell. He was no stranger than anyone else around. The Cambridge scene at that time. He was always on time for rehearsals. Always responsive to musical ideas. Well, let's do this, and let's do one of your songs, and let's do a blues song. He was kind of, as I said, no stranger than anyone else around. I mean, I was pretty strange at the time too.
Was that just a reflection then, I suppose? Was that just the norm, that everyone was a little bit strange at the time?
I think so.
So, you were involved in the recording, weren't you, of I Want to Be Free by The Rings?
The Rings, yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
And I read that that's possibly considered one of the first punk singles that was put out.
It came out in '77, June '77. I'm not sure it was one of the first punk singles. I don't know if the Damned had singles out, the Sex Pistols, lots of punk bands had singles out before.
So do you, I suppose the Pink Fairy stuff, is a sort of step on from like the heavier Pretty Things stuff. So you've got there is that very, you can see that natural evolution into punk from that point, can't you? Through the more sort of heavy rock stuff at that point. Do you was it a sort of, we're going to record a punk song, or was it a bit more of that sort of natural?
Well, Alan Lee Shaw and Rod Latter were friends from Cambridge, and in fact, I'd actually been I was playing with a band called the Fallen Angels prior to the Rings forming, and I had Mickey Finn, not the Mickey Finn from T-Rex, the other Mickey Finn. Greg Ridley was on bass. Guy Humphreys was on guitar, and I was on drums. And we were one evening we were rehearsing at Steve Marriott's cottage in Essex, and I was involved this time in a serious car crash, and I fractured my mandible, my jawbone, and so that was the end of the Fallen Angel. We had gigs which we were rehearsing, for gigs which we were doing in a few days' time. Anyway, Alan and Rod, I was in hospital for I think 2 or 3 weeks, and Rod and Alan came to visit me quite frequently, and then they had this idea of doing some gigs together, which we did. When I came out of the hospital, we supported Hawkwind on a couple of occasions. That was a 3-piece, me on drums, Rod Latter on bass, and Alan Lee Shaw on lead guitar and vocals. And that kind of wasn't really going anywhere. And then the punk thing started to happen, and then Rod and Alan said, well, why don't you do lead, because you fancy doing lead vocals? So I said, well, I've always fancied myself as doing lead vocals. So we started to rehearse, the Rings. Yeah. And the first gig we did was at Dingwall's. Ted Carroll came along, and he signed it straight away. And we recorded the single for Chiswick Records.
Okay. I think if it's all right with you, we'll take a quick break for about 15 minutes.
Yeah, great.
And then we'll come back. I'll do a few more questions, and then we'll put some questions out to the floor. Is that okay? Brilliant.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.